Hello, everyone. Welcome to Appalachian Trail 101. We will begin this webinar shortly. Welcome to Appalachian Trail 101 webinar. I'm glad that you're able to join me for this fun and interesting webinar on the Appalachian Trail. This webinar will begin shortly. I'd like to welcome everyone out to this webinar titled Appalachian Trail 101. My name is Donna Evans, and I'm very excited to share my experiences and education regarding the Appalachian Trail with you. I recently began learning about the trail as a certified teacher, K through 12, in the state of Virginia. As you know, teachers need to have continuing education credits and professional development activities, and I saw this lesson that was called Trail to Every Classroom. So I signed up for it. It was offered by the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, and it was a training on how to bring the Appalachian Trail into the classroom, hence the name A Trail to Every Classroom. Well, I was very excited about it, and I learned a lot about the Appalachian Trail. And for this reason, I am here today with this webinar to share with you what I've learned about it, and hopefully to inspire and help you to spend more time on the Appalachian Trail. So again, my name is Donna Evans, and I'm going to share with you a PowerPoint presentation that I created, and I hope you enjoy it. Let me go ahead and load that up for you. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed these beautiful flowers that you see here on the first page. You know, these flowers I took pictures of these flowers up on Appalachian Trail, Springer Mountain in Georgia, just this past April. So you can see how beautiful it is to walk up on the trail. Today, I'd like to start with a simple definition. What is the Appalachian Trail? Well, it is the longest continuous footpath in the world. It spans from Maine to Georgia. Actually, you know, the length of the trail sometimes changes depending, like if the trail gets unmaintained, it's not maintained, and they have to move it a little bit. And so sometimes the trail is a little longer or a little shorter sometimes, but as of today, the actual exact length of the trail is 2,189 miles long. So here is a picture of Mount Katahdin in Maine. Mount Katahdin is one of the terminuses of the trail up in the north, and then you can hike from Maine down to the other end of the trail, of the Appalachian Trail, which is Springer Mountain, Georgia. Very beautiful, whichever end you start on. One more thing, the Appalachian Trail is a marked hiking trail in the eastern United States, extending between Springer Mountain in Georgia and Mount Katahdin in Maine. The southern pronunciation is Appalachian, and the northern pronunciation is Appalachian. So depending on where you're from, you might pronounce it a little bit differently. So one thing that is really good to know is that there are blazes all along the trail, and these are 2 inches wide by 6 inches high, and they're white little rectangles painted on the trees, the rocks and the power lines, the power poles, fences, anywhere. And they help direct you and help you to know that you're going in the right direction. So just follow the white blazes. You see in this picture a picture of my husband, and he is always very happy to find those white blazes. These are the trail states. You know, the Appalachian Trail winds through 15 of the United States, from Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And the trail passes through 10 of the original 13 colonies. So you know that it is absolutely just surrounded by history. There is Revolutionary War history, a lot of Civil War history along the trail, and you also pass through great, I should say, great national parks, national forests, the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, the Cherokee National Forest, Shenandoah National Park, and on and on. There are state lands and federal lands that are just absolutely beautiful. So history and nature. It's very interesting to also know about the history of the trail. It was first conceptualized in 1921 by a regional planner named Benton MacKay. I've heard it pronounced McKay, Benton MacKay. And he had an idea that all the workers, people who work in factories, you know, they ought to have a place where they could go out and get out of the urban sprawl and enjoy the wilderness and the nature. So he had this concept, and in 1923, the first section of the trail was actually completed. I think might add that, you know, Benton MacKay, after he had this idea, he started writing newspaper articles and he shared this idea in the newspaper with people. And then they started making the first little section of the trail. In 1925, Benton MacKay helped to form an organization called the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, or conference at that time. And they formed this conference to help to promote the vision of creating this trail. At the end of the 1920s, there were some other very helpful people working on it with Benton MacKay. There were Arthur Perkins and Myron Avery. They were very practical people, and they got out there, worked with trail clubs and volunteers, and actually made things happen so that the trail was completed. And in 1937, the Appalachian Trail was declared open from Maine to Georgia after more than a decade of work. Now, a lot of things happened after the creation of the Appalachian Trail in 1937. I mean, not long after, World War II came along, and a lot of trail volunteers had to go to war, and parts of the trail fell into disrepair. So after the war, people again came together and were trying to find ways to keep the trail in good condition, and um, they were able to get it to be part of the federal um, lands. It became part of the Park Service, and um, today it is protected in that way. So we're very lucky to have the Appalachian Trail. And I just want to say here that this is a great example of how an individual can have a great idea and promote it, share it with others. And with a lot of people working together, they can make some very wonderful things happen. And that's really what happened and how the Appalachian Trail came to be. It really is a wonderful story. Okay, so yes, in 1968, President Johnson signed into law the National Trail System Act. And this is really when the AT became the first national scenic trail and part of the national park system. So the AT got federal protection in this way. So today, who manages and maintains the trail? The AT is managed by the National Park Service, the United States Forest Service, the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, or ATC, which is a nonprofit. It's really very much taken care of by trail clubs, which are all along the Appalachian Trail. And each of those trail clubs has lots of volunteers. So hundreds and hundreds of volunteers put in many hours to help maintain the trail, to paint the white stripes, the blazing stripes to help the hikers know which way to go. That is all there because of a lot of volunteers. Excuse me. So a fun question is, okay, who hikes the trail? There are some really interesting names here. We have through hikers, hopscotch or flip-flop hikers, section hikers, and 2,000-miler hikers. Let me help explain these to you. Through hikers are those who start at one end of the trail and then they hike all the way to the other end of the trail. So for example, you might start up at Katahdin, Maine, and then go all the way down to Springer Mountain in Georgia. And then you would earn this distinguished position and acknowledgement of being a through hiker. There are hopscotch or flip-flop hikers that maybe choose to start in the middle of the trail, which hikers generally call Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, about the middle of the trail. And they will perhaps hike from West Virginia up to Maine. And then they'll get into an airplane, fly down to Georgia, and then hike Springer Mountain, Georgia, up to Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, where they initially started. So hopscotch or flip-flop hikers, they still walk every inch of the trail, but they do it in the not all the way through in one go. Then there are section hikers that complete sections at a time, and they can still be considered through hikers, by the way, as long as they complete the whole trail within a year. So let's say you wanted to do Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia, and then take a few months off, and then you wanted to continue doing section by section, but you completed the whole trail within a year, then you would be a section hiker, but also you could be a through hiker. Well, for those who really want to be out in nature and love the trail, but certainly don't want to do it within a year or can't get the time off work, you can be a 2,000-miler hiker because there's no time limit. You could hike the entire trail, one state at a time, perhaps one county at a time, at your leisure. But after you do hike each segment of the trail, you can fill out an application to become a 2,000-miler hiker, and you receive a certificate in the mail. This is from the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, by the way. You would go to their website at appalachiantrail.org, get the application for the 2,000-miler, and then you'd be sent your certificate and a patch to wear on your shirt. Okay, so I thought it would be really fun to share some hiking stories with you about the trail. A pretty well-known hiker is Earl Schaefer. He is sometimes called a soldier hiker. Well, in 1948, he brought a great deal of attention to the Appalachian Trail by becoming the first documented through hiker. Now, he was 29 years old. He was home from fighting in World War II. He had lost a very dear friend in the Pacific, and he was kind of looking at this as walking off the war. So he did this, and in 1948 was the first through hiker. Then again in 1965, when he was 46 years old, he went in the other direction. He hiked from Maine down to Georgia, so he became the first to through hike in both directions. In 1998, at age 79, Earl Schaefer completed a third through hike, this time again from Georgia to Maine. So Earl Schaefer, a very important hiker. Another lovely story is that of Emma Gatewood. She is sometimes known as Grandma Gatewood, and she was a mother and grandmother of over 20 grandchildren, and at the age of 67, she hiked the Appalachian Trail. And she brought a lot of attention to the trail. And as you can see in this picture, she wasn't equipped with all of the latest gear that we might consider taking today. She had a pack on her shoulder. She wore tennis shoes, and she just went. She started in Georgia and just told her children actually that she was taking a walk. She didn't tell them what she was doing, but they found out later because once reporters learned that this grandmother was hiking the Appalachian Trail, they became quite interested and would try to catch her whenever they could along the trail. And they would ask her, "Why are you doing this?" multiple times. Sometimes she would say, "Well, because it was there. The trail was there." Another time she just said, "Well, it just seemed like the thing to do." So there she was hiking. And she was a very successful hiker. You know, she had some knowledge that many of us don't have today. And I want to just show you the next page. There's a picture of a sassafras leaf from the sassafras tree. And in a book titled Grandma Gatewood's Walk, written by Ben Montgomery, um, she says that she ventured off the trail. Well, this is Ben Montgomery writing, but he explained she ventured off the trail and found a small sassafras tree in the forest. She picked the tender young leaves from the tips of its branches and made a salad. Nearby, she found a bunch of wild strawberries. They were tart but nice. And I share this with you as well as this page to share that this knowledge about the trees, the herbs, the plants out in nature really help you to get along. Um, she would have known that the stem, leaves, and roots of the sassafras tree are edible. She probably knew that she could have made a tea by digging up the root, peeling off the bark, letting it dry, and boiling it in water to prepare the sassafras tea. But she knew that the young leaves were edible, and she knew that she could make a salad out of it. So it's the more that you know about nature, the better you're going to be when you're out there. Another really fun story about the Appalachian Trail is the Satterley family. Richard and Donna Satterley were hiking in North Carolina when they discovered that Donna was pregnant, and they decided to keep going on their hike. Well, they arrived at Mount Katahdin at the end of the Appalachian Trail when she was 7.5 months pregnant, and in honor of this experience and accomplishment, they named their baby girl Georgia Maine. That is just really amazing, a very significant name for the daughter. There are also some quite sad stories along the Appalachian Trail. And Geraldine Largay, she was a lady who had, you know, a goal to hike the Appalachian Trail. And so she set off actually with a friend, and they were almost, you know, they were doing really well and almost toward the end when her friend got called away, some kind of family emergency, and Geraldine decided she wanted to keep going on her own. But unfortunately, she lost her direction when she went off the trail to go to the bathroom, and she could not find her way back to the trail. Her body was found in 2015 in western Maine, just 2 miles from the Appalachian Trail. Well, she did keep a diary, and she let people know that she had simply lost her way and couldn't find her way back to the trail. She was found inside her sleeping bag in her tent. Very sad, but it helps us to even understand more clearly that we need to be prepared and have situational awareness before we leave the trail to go to the bathroom or whatever we're doing. We need to look around us, make sure that we'll be able to have some guidelines to help us get back to the trail. Um, orient, orienteering skills, these things can be life-saving. Um, In that same vein, I wanted to share this website, AppalachianTrail.org, with you. This is the website I mentioned of the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, and it's a marvelous website. The first link I share at the top is AppalachianTrail.org/home, explore the trail, explore by state. It's a wonderful interactive page where you can click on each state, and when you're in the state, you can see what are all of the Appalachian Trail communities that are along the Appalachian Trail. So that actually can help you to plan your trip, as you can say, oh, okay, the trail goes through those towns, so I could go to those towns and I could find where the trail intersects them or goes nearby to them, and I could take a hike along it there. That's just a very simple way to get started. It's basically how my family started it. They also have information about hiking basics and the basics of food, water, and gear that you need to prepare as you plan to take your hike. Another really good website is sectionhiker.com. That might be very helpful to you too, sectionhiker.com. I do just want to tell you about a current hiker in the news. Stacy Kozel is considered a paralyzed lady currently hiking the Appalachian Trail. She has lupus and wears an Ottobock C brace, which helps her to walk. So she has to hike in 36-hour sections because her braces have batteries and they require charging. So she'll hike for 36 hours and then go have her batteries recharged. But she has just passed the halfway point of the trail. So I read in the newspaper just about 4 days ago. And so here we have it. A paralyzed woman is successfully hiking the Appalachian Trail. And that is just wonderful. All right, so I mentioned that Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, is considered by many hikers to be the midpoint of the Appalachian Trail. I think technically the midpoint is further north in Pennsylvania, just a little ways north, but everyone speaks of Harper's Ferry as if this is the midpoint. So you see a picture here of ATC headquarters, and if you go behind this building and hike up the hill just a little bit, you'll come to the Appalachian Trail. If you go left down the hill, you head towards historic Harper's Ferry. If you go to the right, you actually go towards the mountain and up towards the West Virginia line. So let me show you a picture. If you go hiking towards historic Harper's Ferry, you're going to pass Jefferson's Rock. It's named that because Thomas Jefferson, from this point, looked over this beautiful view at this rock. This is the view that he saw, the confluence of two rivers, the coming together of the Potomac and Shenandoah rivers. And he's famous for these words. He said, "This view was worth the trip across the Atlantic Ocean," or something to that effect, that this view is worth a trip across the Atlantic Ocean. So that is quite a quote, and it's quite a beautiful view along. And so this is West Virginia, Appalachian Trail in West Virginia. As I mentioned, if you went the other direction, you would cross this bridge, which is crossing the Shenandoah River, hike up that mountain in the background towards the West Virginia border. This is me with my little family. And you come to the West Virginia state line, and you can keep going to Keys Gap and on up, I should say on down, because this is going south down to Georgia. I'd like to mention a trail highlight about the state of Virginia. Over 550 miles of the trail, more than a quarter of the trail, are in the state of Virginia. So that's very fun to know. Large sections of the trail in Virginia parallel the Blue Ridge Parkway, and further north the Skyline Drive in the Shenandoah National Park. And also one of the most photographed spots on the Appalachian Trail is McAfee Knob near Salem, Virginia. You can see a picture of it there. It's quite impressive. So my family decided that we wanted to experience more of the Appalachian Trail. And so what we did is we looked at the map, the Appalachian Trail map, and as we mentioned, we found some communities that seemed really close to the Appalachian Trail, and we we just went there, we just hopped in the car and we went there. And this is the town of Troutville, Virginia. And there's something remarkable about Troutville. I went into the post office and was told that, and I saw the boxes of supplies for the hikers that come through this town. They have toothbrushes and toiletries that the hikers are just free to take to refresh themselves. Also, you see the park that my children are playing in. There's a large green area behind the toys, and the hikers are invited and welcome to camp there year-round, free of charge, as they come off that trail. And you can see there's a bathroom, making it convenient for them. And another thing I learned is they can go over to the fire station, which is just kitty corner across the street from this park, and they can have a free shower over there. So I think this is a marvelous example of American hospitality at its best. I love to hear stories like this and to see how welcoming a town this is. So this is an Appalachian Trail community town, Troutville, Virginia. So from this part of town, we just walked down a little ways. My daughter Adriana found the white blaze, and here you can see how the trail comes into or intersects the town of Troutville, Virginia. This is the other side of the trail, Dean sitting down, but we wanted to show the mullein plant. We talked about how Grandma Gatewood knew the plants along the trail and how that was helpful for her to have a meal. This is mullein, and mullein historically has been used for people that have respiratory distress, coughs, colds, things like that. And so if you came across a mullein plant and you wanted to um, try something that perhaps your grandmother or great grandmother would have done, you could pick the mullein leaves and create a mullein tea and see how it helps you. Righty. Of course, you need to be sure that you are identifying the plant correctly to know that it is mullein. All right, the next town that we visited after Troutville was a couple hours drive down to the Virginia-Tennessee border. You find the town of Damascus, Virginia. This is also an Appalachian Trail community, and what's unique about this is the trail actually comes right through this little community. You can see the trail. Jean is actually, my son is on the trail, marked by these bricks. And as you go through this town, there are trailside cafes and places where the hikers can grab a bite to eat before they go into more remote locations. So from that Tennessee-Virginia border, we drove into Tennessee and then across the North Carolina border, and about a mile across the border, we accessed another access point of the Appalachian Trail. And North Carolina Appalachian Trail, simply breathtaking, beautiful. A lot of rhododendron bushes, the rivers, streams. It's just very beautiful. And people are so friendly. We met this young lady who just graduated from college, and she is a through hiker. She's attempting her first through hike, I should say. She started out in Georgia, and she was on her way and stopped to talk with us for a few minutes. So we're very glad of that. After our North Carolina section hike, we wanted to hike the Appalachian Trail in Tennessee. So we went to the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. And we learned the North Carolina-Tennessee state line runs through that park, and so does the Appalachian Trail. So we were able to hike in Tennessee in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. And then we continued on down to Georgia, down to Springer Mountain. We wanted to go to the place where the end of the trail was, and we were able to drive our car to a parking lot which was actually 1 mile or so from Springer Mountain starting place. So we did that, and we started hiking up to the top of Springer Mountain. And there's a sign up there, a plaque that's in the big rock, and it identifies your location as Springer Mountain, and it shares that it's the southern terminus. Here are our children, and you can see they enjoyed climbing up the trees at this point. You can kind of see a hiker in the background because many of the hikers just stop here, take pictures of themselves before they head north. And what I'd like to say at this point is that um, when you hike the trail, and if you take friends along or children along, that there's a real sense of accomplishment to it. There's a sense of developing self reliance and uh, the benefit of getting to know nature and just becoming more proficient in what the plants are and what the trees are, and just breathing the fresh air and relaxing out there. There are all kinds of benefits to being out on the Appalachian Trail. And I must share with you that I am not one of those through hikers or those outdoorsy people that go hiking for weeks at a time or camping outdoors. I'm sharing with you an approach of someone who just likes to find the Appalachian Trail and go on section hikes in either direction of it. And even this small amount, it brings joy and satisfaction. And you can see my son, I think he's just delighted. You know, he knows the states that the Appalachian Trail goes through. It's very educational as well. And we had a great time as a family. Now, this was just a way for us to learn more about the Appalachian Trail, to do section hikes from Virginia down to Georgia. We enjoyed it so much, we thought, well, we might try some in the opposite direction. So we did go up to Boiling Springs, Pennsylvania, where they have the Mid-Atlantic Regional Office of the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. You can see a picture of the building there. They have lots of material inside. They have water for the hikers to fill up. And this is three little hikers hiking, just sitting in the front of that building. This is a very common sign. You see north up to Maine and south down to Georgia, so you know what to do. But right around this town of Boiling Springs, Pennsylvania, it is a really good example of the diversity of the trail. We hiked for a while in one direction from Boiling Springs, and we were hiking through farmland. And we hiked through the town of Boiling Springs where they have this river going through and there's a lot of wildlife, and we hiked up hills and saw the trees and the roots. You know, there's just so much diversity in a hike along the Appalachian Trail. I wanted to point out that, of course, we talked before about following the blazes. Sometimes you will just see one white blaze on a tree and you know you're going in the right direction. And sometimes you'll see two white blazes, one on top of the other. And this lets you know that you're about to come to a turn. So you see two white blazes, look around you, it's time to turn a corner, um, perhaps a 45-degree. You got to look and see where the next white blaze is after the turn so that you know where to go. All right, so I hope that you've enjoyed seeing a few of the little hikes that we did as we were doing section hikes along the trail. And I hope that gives you a sense of what the Appalachian Trail is like and that you've enjoyed it. I'd like to, at this point, share with you a little video that um, my children made in Boiling Springs, Pennsylvania, so that you can learn a little bit more about it. Let's see. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up that video. One moment. Here we go. All right. So I hope that you enjoyed that video, Seeing My Children. Okay. I'm bringing myself on live now, and I just want to share a few things as we wrap up this webinar, the Appalachian Trail 101. I just have truly enjoyed learning about the trail, and I hope that you have as well, and that this webinar encourages you to go out and enjoy it wherever you are. Enjoy the trail that's close to you. Of course, the Appalachian Trail, since it winds through 15 United States, there's a lot of people right around it. And yet when you're out on it, it feels like you're out in nature, and it is a break from the urban sprawl, just as Benton McKay initially conceptualized. So it's a great way to get away from it all. As I was learning about the Appalachian Trail, I actually learned about a few other trails that I had never heard of, and I'll just mention them in case they're new to you as well. One is the Pacific Crest Trail. Um, Perhaps the concept was based on the Appalachian Trail, but this one is another trail that goes from the California-Mexico border, goes up through California, Oregon, Washington, and up to the Canadian border. Can you imagine hiking that? That's going to be an extremely beautiful hike. There's also another trail called the Great Eastern Trail. I had no idea. The Great Eastern Trail starts in northern Alabama and goes up to the Finger Lakes area of New York. So if you are not exactly on the Appalachian Trail in that corridor, perhaps one of those other trails could be closer for you. The point is that somewhere near you there is probably a trail, and there are many benefits to getting out on the trail and exploring it. It's just fun, and it's just so exciting. And then again, if for some strange reason you live in a part of the world where there aren't any trails, perhaps you could create one and have the concept to share, just like Benton McKay did. Share it with others and perhaps develop your own trail to help the public, your family, the friends around you to enjoy nature more. Okay, again, I want to thank you for joining me in this webinar, Appalachian Trail 101. The next webinar that you may see coming forward is the trees and edible herbal plants on the Appalachian Trail. So watch for that, please, and please plan to join me for that, so that, like Grandma Gatewood, we can be more self-sufficient and self-reliant as we hike along these trails in our lives. So thank you very much, and feel free to email me. I'm at historicherbs@gmail.com. So historic, HISTORIC, HERBS, historicherbs@gmail.com. If you have any questions about the content on this webinar, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for attending Appalachian Trail 101.